trigger happy and I give less than a fuck. Love me or hate me, I'ma show enough, rip shit up. It's Mr. Nothing, nice on a mic stand. Mic in the left and the zest in my right hand. I took a puff, had enough now, hold up. If that was Indo, niggas getting rolled up.
What's going on, folks? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review Ronnie Radke's secret mixtape, Watch Me. Now, this has kind of been in production since like late 2013. There's been a bunch of stuff that's kind of promoted with this, but Ronnie Radke has been talking about this project, Watch Me, as a mixtape off and on since the summer of 2013. And basically, to this day, it is available. He had a website, which is like a free website that you could sign up for back in the day, and he'd email you songs from this mixtape, and eventually you'd have the whole project. But he wound up releasing 9 out of 12 songs. There were 3 other songs. He released the track list for them, and I'll go ahead and share the songs that weren't ever released, but 3 of them were Bury the Hatchet, Role Model, and The Future. Now, if you're careful enough, you can find those songs on YouTube because he released snippets of them, or he at least listened to them on his Twitch streams, or when people asked him about the songs, he actually did listen to them. But in terms of like getting official releases to where you can collect the whole project, they're not really that available, just because I think Ronnie Radke didn't like the mixing that was with those songs. That's what he had said. So that's kind of the concept, but you can at least listen to 9 out of 12, which is basically 3/4 of the project, and that's virtually good enough. I mean, from what I heard, I at least tried listening to Bury the Hatchet, and that sounded like it had a good beat, but it was just kind of very garbled, just because the quality just depended on how it was. But that's kind of the concept there. So basically, a little backdrop about this project. Further information about Ronnie Radke. He was in a number of bands, one of which was Falling in Reverse, and he's had like decent affiliation with musicians Deuce and Belay from 9 Lives. He did a number of songs. A couple of the singles that he dropped in promotion of this Watch Me mixtape, like he dropped a single featuring Belay called Blacklist, and then another diss track called I Wash Cars, which I definitely would have said wouldn't have been too terrible to have gotten those songs also. Maybe he could have thrown those on there. But collectively as a whole, Ronnie Radke, when he does rap songs, it's very scant and loose, and there's just not collective packages of this guy that are just thrown together like they should be. In my opinion, I feel like Ronnie Radke's Watch Me mixtape should be available on DatPiff and other official rap mixtape websites to get and kind of have, but you really have to kind of search for availability, especially as like a collective piece, to get this stuff by Ronnie Radke, because it feels like most of the time these are just loosies that you kind of get of him. But he has done at least 12 or 15 rap songs, but they're just kind of difficult to get a hold of and especially collect. But yeah, so I obtained this mixtape, and it's pretty solid. I would definitely have to say the thing about this project is just the fact that there's a number of hits from it, and there's definitely some good moments to sit there and talk about and stuff. I would say, like, I would have liked to have heard like the song that he did with like the guy from Papa Roach. He did a song with him, and he did a song with like Jacoby Shaddix from Papa Roach and some folks like that. There's a number of hits. I mean, for the most part, the only real people I knew terribly within the collaborators that he messed with was just Deuce and Belay, and that's definitely one of the best songs on here. It's difficult to talk about the singles just because just about every song was released as a single, just because it was intended to kind of be like a bona fide new thing, just because Ronnie Radke, the concept behind this, Ronnie Radke dropping a rap mixtape, had a lot of prescription to it, just because it was interesting just to see. Basically, I saw him in the same context as Deuce, just a kind of more emo version of Deuce and that type stuff. I definitely would have said that I appreciated the vibes I got from him. He didn't really do terribly much screamo on here. I mean, you get a lot of rapping, and he actually can rap pretty quickly, which he does on Who Can Stop Us. And I want to say he at least does that another time on here, but there's definitely like he can rap pretty decently, and that's kind of the concept about it. Just to be able to say, like, I would have liked like what Broken Side does, where they kind of include like the screaming, because I want to say that Falling in Reverse kind of has that screamo type stuff in here. But really, if you are a fan of Falling in Reverse, there's not terribly much that is a reminder of Falling in Reverse's music. I've at least in patches listened to their 2013 album. It's been a couple years since I listened to it, but I at least was familiar with that album by Falling in Reverse, and it didn't have like the same emo pitch towards it. I mean, I you can appreciate it, but it's more kind of just like uh it feels like, as a rapper, it kind of feels like Yellow Wolf if he wasn't Southern. That's kind of what it kind of reminds me of. It's just kind of like a pretty, typical white rapper just in an emo pitch, but it's difficult to kind of find those emo pitches. But he can rap. To give him talent with what he does, he has the ability to rap on here. Yeah, I feel like Who Can Stop Us with Deuce and Belay kind of reminded me of like an after cut from like Deuce's Nine Lives project. And then there's also a couple hustle tracks on here that kind of remind me, like, I would say like Armor and Destiny both come off as like some hustle tracks, but it is immersed in rap. It's not like Broken Side, and it's not like Blood on the Dance Floor, and it's not like The Millionaires and that type of stuff. I mean, there's the production is great. It definitely Ronnie Radke has a pretty solid ear for beats on here, but like it's just odd to kind of look after it, because this reminds me of something that Rittz would do. Something that Rittz would do. I'm trying to think of other mixtape rappers, not even Paul Wall. I mean, this is an original cash. It feels like Ronnie Radke has dropped like 3 or 4 or 5 projects in the rap world just because of how familiar he sounds with this project. And that's really strange to say that, because just the same year that he dropped this, or was going to drop this, he had put out an album with Falling in Reverse. So just that kind of translation, it just feels like, just getting these singles, him having dropped like 8 singles between like 2013 and 2015. Basically, the concept behind it just feels like he dropped like 3 or 4 projects or something, when really he hasn't even dropped one. That's kind of the concept behind it. But it's interesting that kind of happens, because he reminds me of Rittz. He reminds me of Tech Nine. He reminds me of a little bit of Hopsin, and he reminds me of kind of rappers like that, folks that you would find on like Strange Music, this mixtape rappers that are not necessarily like mainstream rap, but are kind of like this. If you can think of more folks like Rittz and Yellow Wolf and Tech Nine and those type folks in that sort of category, like Jarren Benton from Hopsin's Camp and those type people, that's the sort of cash that you're going to find with Ronnie Radke. And it's just interesting, because I think people may hear this mixtape for the first time and think he's been in the rap vault for like 10 or so years, at least back in 2013. He's been here for 10 years now, but you'd think that he had like I said, multiple projects, when he only has like 9 songs or 12 songs readily available for you to listen to in that sort of concept. But for what it is, it works. The only thing left is to kind of talk about some of these songs. So Asshole kind of introduces the concept that Ronnie Radke has been to prison, has kind of had problems in the past. This song really reminded me of a song that Tech Nine kind of does, especially on like his Angelic album. Just kind of has like a thumping, kind of plodding beat, just a real kind of like knuckle dragging kind of beat, but I liked it. And it yeah, just felt like something off of Tech Nine's Strange Music label, something Tech or Cut Calhoun would do. Who Can Stop Us probably is like the most official song on here. That one felt like the most mainstream. Deuce definitely nailed the hook. Belay had a good verse on there. Just an overall kind of ambient, kind of piano laden, kind of haunting kind of beat on there. And Never the Same, or Already Dead was kind of a real ghostly kind of song. I mean, the hook was almost kind of irritable, but it worked somehow. It just kind of had like a real high-pitched falsetto on here that was really surprising in how it worked. It is just not something I would have projected for what would have happened with a hook like that, but it's a real kind of haunting and kind of creepy kind of song throughout that. Felt like definitely good for the whip, that type thing. Um, like Destiny was like a decent hustle song, Most of these have pretty great beats. I'm starting to forget some of them, but Armor felt like another hustle song. This is an almost song to me. This is a song I was on the fence about, but yeah, so Devil and Never the Same both have like these kind of hypnotic, kind of syrupy beats that just kind of have like a real trancing kind of vibe about them. These feel like the kind of Rittz songs that I was talking about, Rittz and Tech Nine type vibes, real kind of hypnotic and this kind of, letting loose on the lyrics, that type of stuff, just kind of going in and let you know about what's kind of going on there. And I think I basically described all the hits on here. I would just have to say, like, Armor was kind of like, I think partially the reason why I wasn't sold more on Armor was because I would have preferred the production to have been a little bit better. And I mean, some of these, I kind of felt like more than just hustle songs needed something on here. I mean, I feel like there were some kind of charisma songs on here. Nice single in the Deuce and Belay song. Nice creeping song in Already Dead. But I was kind of looking for something. Maybe I would have really liked for there to be more of like a screamo song more than a get up and get it type song. I mean, some of these just felt like kind of motivation type songs, having more of like an ambience and kind of starry eyed, if you know what I mean. This kind of more looking to the sky and kind of ambitious. And I feel like that kind of happened in at least Destiny, Armor, and well, at least those two songs. But I definitely, I mean, it's for some reason it's just a pretty cardinal sin that there was not some sort of mosh pit type song on this project. I really feel like Ronnie Radke should have established something and have had like some screamo type song, just something to really go nuts and kind of make that a club song. Even done something similar to Broken Side and that type stuff. Definitely something. I know that there's probably some more pitches towards that, and it really makes me curious about the 3 songs that weren't released also, because for the most part, me giving this kind of a above average score. I know if I would have heard the other 3 songs and liked them, I probably would be eating my words right now. But that's just kind of the concept for what it, out of 9 songs, not liking just 2 or 3 of them kind of leads you to detract from the score a bit. But that's just kind of the concept. But yeah, I mean, Armor just kind of came off as like a tepid kind of, or not tepid, but just good but not great kind of hustle song I was on the fence about. But all right, so I'm going to tell you the songs out of 9 that I recommend to you. So these are the songs out of 9 I recommend. So Asshole, Never the Same, Already Dead, Who Can Stop Us, Destiny, and Devil. And then the 7th song that I was on the fence about was Armor. So those are the ones I recommend. I do not know about the other 3 songs out of 12 that were on here. Bury the Hatchet, Role Model, and Future. You can listen to those and decide for yourself, but until Ronnie Radke has like an official release, which may never happen because he's, like I said, he's been working on this project since the summer of 2013, and that's almost 10 years ago. But there is a number of Ronnie Radke songs, but it just seems like maybe eventually he'll decide to kind of be more lenient and decide to release these. But for what it is, I'm going to score this album basically a 7 out of 10, because the song I was on the fence about, me not liking 2 songs on here, talk about Brother, which I just didn't like the direction of, and then Stupid Boy, which really could have used a better beat. I mean, it wasn't a bad beat, but it kind of just was a grating. Like Stupid Boy was kind of, it didn't really have enough like pacing towards it to really be enough of a good beat. I mean, I felt like the direction and the keys, the key placement for how the beat went is just the rhythm towards that song didn't quite have enough aspects towards it. So yeah, the social score I'll give like a 6 out of 10, just because I would give it a higher score. Some of the singles are really good. I mean, like I said, a lot of these were released as singles, but the concept behind it is just how difficult this project is to get as a whole, which is something to pay attention to. And there were a lot of singles, but it just kind of depends. Like the immediacy of some of these, with each of these songs being released as a single, it's kind of differential as far as what could be described, just because Ronnie Radke, what he's known for, he doesn't really play to his strengths on here. Like I felt like he had chemistry with Deuce and Belay, but some of these hustle songs kind of felt like generic kind of rap mixtape songs. I mean, they're not bad, but in terms of like Who Can Stop Us that jumps off the page, and Already Dead, which has like a real creepy and kind of ghoulish feel that jumps off the page, and Asshole, which kind of comes off as a nice personal song that jumps off the page in some respects. The beat doesn't, but it just kind of was the type personal song that Tech Nine kind of does. Some of those moments, and the overall great beat of Devil, that's probably one of the best beats on here. I mean, I feel like it's kind of a pick and choose as to what single is going to connect, considering that he dropped every song as a single out of these songs. But the concept behind it is you just don't know what's going to happen. So it's just kind of, you things like nowadays with every music project anymore is divisive. Some people like this, some people like that, some people like those, and so on. And that's just kind of the concept. But I feel like the foothold in trying to describe some of these, the ones that I connected with, I kind of feel like, without the mismatch of the divisiveness, I feel like it's still about a 6 out of 10. And that's partially I score it that way just because of the difficulty of obtaining this project. But that's kind of the thing. So the social score means how well it plays around your friends. If you were to connect and show some of your buddies or your coworkers or pals that you hang out with as to what they would think of this stuff. So that's kind of the thing. What Ronnie Radke's been up to. I mean, really, he's been on Twitch. He's getting ready to drop. He's done some new stuff with Falling in Reverse, so I'm excited for that. And I would like for him to drop another mixtape. I mean, I almost think that this could be a pretty convenient side hustle for him if he wanted to. But he needs, like I said, this definitely needs to be officially released on DatPiff and other official websites. And we need to get those other 3 songs.